All right.
Good evening and welcome to the Blacknificent Show. I am Difference Mavasa and I will be your host for tonight. Tackling a very heavy and a very interesting issue in our society, and that is depression and anxiety in the Black community, to be specific. And with me, I am joined by a guest who is very much familiar in this show because he is not new at all. A former host of the Blacknificent Show, Nkosinathi Mahlangu. Welcome to the show, man. How does it feel to be a guest in a show you once hosted?
No, it does feel a bit weird, but I'm excited. You're right in saying that the topic for today is quite interesting.
Yeah. And how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right. School is going well.
Yeah.
Life is going well. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah. That's great, man. Because people are going through a lot, and I think maybe that is why we are having this discussion today. It's because us as young Black people are going through a lot, and we know that having you in this show will help us dissect some of the issues that our young Black people are faced with. So, but just to kick it off, I want to start by getting some terms defined. What does depression really mean? What kind of a mental state is depression, and what leads to it? What are some of the major causes, and how can one identify that they are depressed? Before we talk to some of the things that depression has done to us, but what really is depression?
Okay. What depression is? Well, okay. There's a common misconception that it's just a sadness that people experience, but that is not true. The sadness is a symptom. There's the sadness. There's the loss of interest. So you stop engaging in activities that you would normally engage in. You just lose that interest. And then there's also levels in this thing. There's as I said, levels, and there's symptoms there range. You've got your major clinical depression, and then it goes lower. There's mild, and then there's low. So yeah, they range like that, and the symptoms as well. Then also another thing about the misconception about this illness of depression, because it is an illness. That's something I forgot to mention. It's an illness. One of the misconceptions is that they result from a single event, and that's not true. It's a number of things that come into play. It can involve your genes. It can involve a situation you are in, or a change that you're trying to adjust or abuse. So a lot of factors come into play when it comes to this illness of depression. It's not normal, and that's something people must know. It is an illness. When a person is depressed, it's not just something you should accept and let slide. It's not a normal response to stress. You know, when you're stressed and there's something that's overwhelming, something that's kind of making you upset or sad, it's normal for you to feel, how can I say, to lose the happiness that you may have, to be sad or down. But then it shouldn't be something that persists. It shouldn't be something that continues to an abnormal extent, to a point where you struggle waking up. You know you should go to the shower, but you don't really want to. You should be going to your classes, you don't want to. You should be going to work, you don't want to. It's basically a dullness. It's like a dark cloud that is over you, and it's complex, really. And the complexity of it is that it doesn't have a straight cure, neither does it have a straight cause. There's a lot of things that come into it, and it's a build-up of many things. So yeah, and then on the causes, there can be many, as I've mentioned already. But then what I've taken note of here is the main causes that psychologists have identified. The first one I've taken note of is abuse, be it physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. Any kind of abuse really can lead to depression, maybe not immediately at the time, but later in life, because this thing of depression, it's a build-up. It's not something that just falls onto you, but it's different for people. I'll explain that now. And then age also comes into play. Older people are at higher risk of being depressed, and this can be made worse by them living alone. When your children move out, you're left alone, you no longer have a social support. And then it can come from conflict as well. But then for conflict, it's a different thing. This thing of conflict is something we have almost every day, because we're human beings, we engage with other people. We're not always going to agree with them. But then for people who have, how can I say, a genetic weakness, people who are more likely to be or to have depression because of their genes, because of their family history. Simple things like a conflict can lead to or can trigger a depressive phase. Then there's death or loss when you lose a loved one. It's normal, of course, to have grief and to be sad after you lose a loved one, but then it shouldn't be an abnormally continuous thing, because although it's harsh to say, but we do stand up from loss, and things get easier as time goes by. But when things are not getting easier to a point where it begins to affect your life, you're no longer interested in things like I've mentioned before, and you no longer want to wake up, you no longer want to do things that you used to enjoy doing, then it becomes a problem. And then the next thing is gender. And this is going to sound very weird, but apparently women are twice as likely to fall into depression than men. The exact reason is not known, but what psychologists think is that it's the hormonal changes that women go through throughout life. And this is an interesting point, because although women are twice as likely to develop this illness than men are, the suicides as a result of depression are more for men than they are for women. And it's kind of something that we'll get into later. Then another thing, as I've mentioned above, it's genes. And this is unfortunate, but then family history. If your family history has depression in it, you are more likely to fall into depression than a person who does not have any depression in the family history. And this is because of genes, your genetics. So it's not a single gene, really, that people can identify or experts can identify and resolve. It's a number of genes that work together and contribute towards, because feelings, in a way, and emotions are influenced by hormones. So there are hormones for sadness, hormones for happiness, or different kinds of emotions. So if there's something in the brain that's supposed to produce a particular hormone that's not, it could be that particular hormone is the one that's supposed to make you feel happy feelings. And if it does not work properly, then there could be an issue. And then on top of that, the part that's supposed to give you normal amount of stress in a stressful situation could be overworking and producing too much stress. And that's not good because it could lead to things like burnout and and the likes. And this is all because of genes. And it's something that people really need to understand, because what I'm talking about here is biological. It's not that you're having negative thoughts only. It's just the structure of your brain is not allowing you to flourish and live as happy as you could. It's holding you back and keeping you in a depressive state. And then next point is major events. And this is also quite interesting. And I like this point because it paints a clear picture of what depression is. Major events, whether they are negative or positive, they can be overwhelming and can lead to a depressive phase. So things like from loss of income to a new job, one's negative, one's positive, but they both can lead to a depressive phase, whether it's divorce or marriage, dropping out or graduating. So these things they come with major changes in your life, and they can be overwhelming. Even though some may be positive, you could get into a depressive phase because it's overwhelming. And it kind of gives us a picture. It's not only sad events that can make a person feel or have a depressive phase. Then there's the personal issues that a person can be going through. One of them being social isolation. And this we see a lot with people who are disabled or have an illness that kind of sets them aside from everyone else. They experience feelings of isolation. They feel like they are outcasts. So that can also trigger a depressive phase. And then a serious illness, be it your cancer, learning that you're HIV positive, or any kind of biological situation or illness or disease that is overwhelming and scary. It can really kind of mess up your thinking, especially in regards to hope, because you could have plans for something, but then now all of a sudden you find out that your number of years could be reduced if you don't make changes and whatever. Your life just could change completely. So that could also lead to a depressive phase. Substance abuse. The next point, apparently, according to research, 30% of people with substance abuse issues suffer from clinical depression. Sorry, I started there. So although drugs and alcohol may give a temporary happiness and relief, they do in turn aggravate or can trigger a depressive phase. There's no recovery, meaning it can get worse. Meaning if your depression, let's just give it a number, is on level 9. When you go and indulge in drugs or alcohol, thinking that you're going to be better, it is going to feel like you're happy for that amount of time. But when you come back, you're not going to come back to that same level 9. And the scientific explanation of this entire thing is quite complex. I need to look into it more. But you don't get back to where you were. It goes higher and gets worse and worse and worse. And then, the last part of the question about it being identifiable. Yes, it is identifiable. A person can kind of know that, okay, things are different for me. I used to enjoy going out and taking a walk. I used to enjoy going for a jog in the morning. I used to wake up early. I used to watch some comedy and laugh. I used to enjoy doing things. But now all of a sudden, I'm not interested in anything and whatnot. So if a person does experience that, it is important that they start looking for help. And another thing that's important, that although you see some of the symptoms that may suggest that you're struggling from depression. It's important not to self-diagnose. You can't just go around now and say, okay, I'm depressed, I have depression. Because yeah, it's not good. What I encourage is that people go to experts and see professionals. Have them say to you that, okay, you are depressed. Yeah, I think I hope I've covered enough, but I feel like I've said a mouthful.
Absolutely agree. Thank you so much for that elaborate and technical explanation, because I feel like it puts us in a better position as far as trying to understand what depression really is concerned. Because maybe I feel like most of the times we try to deal with problems that we don't understand, to begin with. And I feel like the more we define the problem, the more we understand it better, and maybe dealing with it becomes much more easier. You have mentioned a number of things that we will zoom into during the course of the interview, of course, but I want to start somewhere. You say, one interesting thing that I picked up, that major events, whether they be positive or negative, can lead to a depressive state, right? So my next question from that would then be, is it possible to be depressed and you are not aware that you are actually depressed? And how does that affect the way you continue to live your life, the way you go about your business on a day-to-day basis? And if that is possible, then what is it that people can do to ensure that they just keep a constant check with their mental state and look out for such elements?
Okay. Well, yeah, you've taken it from this question from acknowledging that people can be depressed from both negative and positive situations. So it is possible that things are going well for you. You're getting married, you're studying your career, things are just going well. But at the time, life is changing. You're no longer maybe a student anymore. You're no longer dependent. You're now independent. You now have a husband or wife. And things are changing now. And it could also be that you're expecting, if you're female, you're expecting, or if you're male, your partner is expecting, and a baby's on the way, and you're about to be a mother and father. So there's all of these changes that are coming, and it's good things that are happening. But then they are overwhelming, because although these things are coming and they're happening, they're going to move on, and they're not going to wait for you to kind of adjust and catch up. So, and in that situation, it could be hard, because you could wake up and feel like, but I'm not okay. I don't feel like engaging in life. I just want to hide somewhere. I just want to not engage in anything, actually. But then you'd be confused because things are going well. So it would be hard to say that, okay, I'm depressed, especially if you think that this illness of depression or a depressive phase only comes or is only triggered by negative instances. But then also in terms of being unaware, it can happen even for people who are going through some intense things. But yeah, let me start it from here. People can usually identify that, okay, something's not okay, something's not normal, even though things are going bad or even though things are going good. Something is not normal with me because of the loss of interest and because of the phases of sadness, which can come from nowhere. So it can be confusing, and a person can be unaware. A person can feel like, no man, it's just a thing, it's gonna pass. What people are saying a lot these days, that no, you probably had something that you haven't really, maybe you had a fight with a friend, or maybe you lost a loved one a while back, and then all of a sudden you feel sad and you don't quite understand why. So you talk to someone else and that person say, no, maybe it's emotions that you didn't really work on or deal with. Maybe it's things that you rushed through. And it could be that that's not the case. It could be that you are going through a depressive phase, not because of a particular reason really, but because you have depression. Depression really is something that we need to get educated about, because it's not as simple as we think. There are many misconceptions and stigmas about it. And because of that, you also have some people trying to avoid, even though they can feel that, okay, something's not okay, but they don't want to think in terms of mental health. Maybe they want to think of it in a spiritual sense, or maybe they want to think of it, I don't know, maybe in a sense of, okay, I just need to take a break. I just need to go on a vacation and come back. And it could be that it's not just that. It's very possible that people can have or go through or live with a depression without them really knowing. Especially young people. Also in regards to avoidance, because I was talking about how people can avoid that. If you know that, okay, I'm not okay, and you suspect that it's a mental health thing, but you know that your parents won't really quite understand really what's going on. And if you have to tell them that you're depressed, they might think that, but what's this thing of depression? Some parents are under the view that depression is from, not only some parents, but some young people as well. They see depression as something that only white people will go through, or only rich people will go through. They see it as a disease for the wealthy or the privileged, which is incorrect. In fact, yeah, it's actually, it can be quite the opposite. People who have been historically disadvantaged are more likely to suffer from depression because of socioeconomic issues. But I think we are going to get into that later. So some parents or guardians may not quite understand, and this could make a child hesitate to express that, okay, something's not okay. And beyond that, it can make a child not even think in terms of mental health, maybe think in terms of, okay, no, maybe it's something that just needs prayer. I'm not feeling okay. My parents, I know, are very spiritual people, so let me tell them that there's this thing that I'm feeling, and then they'll just refer to it as a demon and pray it out. And although, yes, we do have our beliefs, but it's important that we take a proper look at what things are. If it's not a demon, it's not a demon. If it's depression, it's depression. Although a lot of people will differ with me on a religious point of view and say that no, a demon can bring the depression, but we're not there now. Where we are is we want to identify depression and call it what it is, and deal with it the way psychologists say we should. I think the last question I asked was, what can a person get involved in or do to kind of keep check on their mental state? And I've noted here that the best thing, or the first thing a person is supposed to do, is stay aware of your non-physical self. Introspection. No matter what you're going through, whether it's positive or negative, or whether it's neutral, just always have a look at yourself, not your body, but how you're feeling, how you're looking at things. Are you optimistic about things? Are you pessimistic about things? If you are pessimistic, your pessimism, where is it coming from? Did you have to be pessimistic? You're going to write a test, you think you're going to fail. Why do you think you're going to fail? Why do you have a negative approach? Just people should always look at themselves, how they think about things, how they feel about things, and maybe that will help you identify a negative trend. Because there's people who've got major depression, and these are people who they struggle leaving bed. It's hard. Everything is hard. Taking a shower can be overwhelming, and this can sound ridiculous to some people, but it's a real thing. But then there are people who have a mild depression, or one that's low, and it can be minor things like even punctuality. You just stay. still and stagnant. You know that, okay, something is coming. I need to be at a particular place at a particular time. But then you kind of don't have the motivation to kind of arrive there on time. And it's happening all the time. And people even know now that you're never on time. So it's something that people should also look at. Always have that self awareness. And then also people need to stay aware about mental health. They need to stay as informed as possible, read up on it. And this is for everyone, because you could be having friends who, even though you're okay, but you could be having friends, and because you read up on mental health and depression and anxiety, you kind of identify something. So you tell a friend that, no, I'm not saying you have depression, I'm not saying you have anxiety, but I'm saying that you could go see someone and ask what these trends are. So staying informed helps you, and it helps the people around you. And one thing I want to repeat, and this is very important, people should not diagnose themselves. Like the example I made with punctuality. It could be that you're just not a punctual person for whatever reason. People must not hear that and think, man, I'm always late, maybe I'm depressed. So people mustn't self-diagnose. It's important that they go and see experts. It's important that they go see people who have knowledge about this thing, and then explain the trends that they're identifying, and then have a psychologist or a mental health expert observe or analyze you. And then if people find themselves in environments that have not really embraced anxiety and depression as a real illness, as I've said before, they need to stay informed. And then where it's possible, where there's a chance, they need to educate. So it should be something that's on our mouth. It's something that we should be speaking about, that a person could be suffering from depression and wouldn't even know about it. Because, but yeah, there's a stat I wanted to mention. Yeah, let me just mention it. In South Africa, research was done. I think for the sample of the research, they used about 4,000 people, somewhere there. So what they do is that they take a number of people who are different, who are doing jobs that are different, some unemployed, people of different races and whatever. And then they check them. There's a way that they can look at the entire population of people by looking at only a sample. So what the research concludes in saying is that 1 in 6 people suffer from some sort of mental disorder, really, that people don't commonly go to mental institutions for. Like if someone is hallucinating, or someone is what's this thing, has a bipolar disorder and whatever, those kind of things that will get you into a mental hospital. We're not speaking about those. We're speaking about things like anxiety and depression, things that people can somehow live with from a day-to-day life, and that people consider to be minor, even though they are not. 1 in 6 South Africans has one. So if you know people who are 12, there's 2 of them who are suffering, and we wouldn't even know about it. So staying informed and being aware for yourself and being aware for other people is something that could help in regards to keeping a check on your own mental state. And as I firstly mentioned as well, checking up on your non-physical self, your thoughts, the way you feel about things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And I want to just follow up on 2 things that you mentioned that I think are very crucial. You mentioned how elders may not be able to deal with challenges that young people face in the way that they should. What do you think of the Black family as a pillar? How well equipped is it to deal with modern day challenges that young people go through. Maybe in the past, it's something that was avoided. You know, if you felt like you're not okay, you just had to be strong. So as a part B to that question, how is our perceived culture of avoidance, you know, affected the way that we should deal with depression? Because it could be that maybe our parents are just used to going through things and they get past that stage without having to entertain whatever difficulties that they are going through. And how is that affected the pillar of the family in our society as far as dealing with these modern day challenges is concerned?
Okay. First thing I'll say is that with parenting, there's no course for it. There's no sort of qualification that you can study for. So what we do as humanity is that we learn as we go in regards to parenting, and then we also learn from people who have been parents, or who are parents. So, and also from information that we're exposed to in regards to parenting, whether from other people, whether from research, whatever. So what we see here is that environment is important, and access to information is also very important for parents, mothers and fathers, for the pillars in the Black family. Because if there's a lack in information, in the environment, or access to information, the person will not be equipped. Because there's especially with our generation, there's a difference, and it's huge. And I think a big contributor to the difference really is the internet. Young people have access to a lot of information, and young people are interested in learning about themselves. These days we hear young people speaking about their love languages, we hear young people speaking about their attachment styles, you hear young people speaking about their star signs, horoscopes, and whatever. So young people have a desire to kind of learn about themselves. So if they do identify these trends that, or these things that I mentioned above in the symptoms or the causes, they will start thinking about anxiety. They will start thinking about a depressive phase, whether they might be going through it or not. And if they can't go and speak to their parents about that, if their parents will see that as no, but if you just said, why don't you do things that make you happy? You know, if their parents have that, and there's this sad, I don't know if you've seen it, a sad thread on Twitter where it's young people who are talking about the experiences. I don't know, some of them sound like they're made up. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think I've seen it. Is it the old lady who? The one I saw was a meme, right? Where there's this old lady who is speaking through the door, and they would have all different kinds of depression messages that they think old people do not understand, I think.
Yeah. That also is involved. But there was also a thread on Twitter, screenshots were going around where it was actually one person who started and said that no, the child actually went with the mother to see a psychologist to kind of discuss this new strange behavior that she has. And then the psychologist kind of explained that no, it is depression, and how to work with it and deal with it and whatnot. So when they got back home, things were different in a way, because the mother kind of felt as if she's responsible for it. I don't know why, but then apparently she would say things like, no, you don't have to wash the dishes, it's fine, because you're going to say that we are toxic, we are leading you to, or we are triggering your depression, or those kind of things. And there was a number of screenshots about that. So it kind of shows us how, although it seemed funny there and people were bringing humor from that, but it kind of shows you that there is a gap, and the youth that it does feel misunderstood. So if our parents, our elders, our pillars in the Black family are not exposed to this information on mental disorders, on depression, on anxiety, on on bipolar, it's going to be hard. There's going to be huge frustration on both sides. So there needs to be that education, people educating the older people, because what we also see is that kids are learning about anxiety, depression in a low from primary and then going up through high school. So they know about it. It's in their minds. They have an idea of it. But when they go through stuff, they can't speak to their parents because maybe they just know that their parents won't understand. So what we need is for those parents and guardians who aren't equipped, who don't know how to deal with challenges faced by young people, to actually learn. And for parents, sometimes it's hard learning from kids. So the government should be involved here. Where are our parents? Are they teachers? Let's go and explain to teachers what depression is. Although I think they have a good idea. Let's go explain to workers in the commercial fields, and just explain to adults everywhere who may be having children that, okay, there's depression, and kids can have it. You're more likely to have it if you're older, but children can have it. Children can suffer from stress and burnout and depression and anxiety and bipolar and all these things. It is a possibility, because if you have children being aware and parents not being aware, there is going to be a frustration, as I have said. So my personal view is that Black families are not equipped as much as they could be. Although we do have parents who we watch our television with, we do have parents who can use phones, although they ask us to help them every now and then. But they do have access to information. But what we need is for them to see depression, maybe somewhere as a headline, and actually read up on it and be interested in it and be consciously aware of it, and not be something that you just brush over. Because I don't know how, but people can just make some strange assumptions. I remember in the beginning of COVID, or people were saying that no, Black people are not going to get it. It's for white people, and it was strange because on a biological level, how does the color of my skin affect whether a virus will enter or not, you know? And the same with depression. That assumption is there that no, lentole yabelungu, and we Black people, it doesn't really get to us. And the truth is, it does. It's just that because we have that idea, we don't want to acknowledge. So we do need the pillars in our families equipped more, although they do have an idea, but we do need more, to an extent where a child can say to the mother or father and say, I don't feel like going to school anymore, or I don't feel like playing soccer anymore. And you know, it's something I enjoy, but I just don't feel like going anymore. I think something's wrong with me. And the parent should not respond in a hostile way and saying, no, you're just being lazy or whatever. They should actually look into it and try and find out what's happening. It could be laziness, and if it is, you deal with it appropriately. It could be a depressive phase, and if it is, you deal with it appropriately. But parents and guardians or pillars in the Black family should be more aware of it and should be more equipped in regards to this.
So I just thought of something as you're speaking. There's a saying that says, the more knowledge, the more grief. Do you think our current generation could be more depressed than the former generation because we know a lot, because we are exposed to more information than it was in the past? What is your assessment of that old saying?
Well, I would agree, but then I wouldn't structure it in that way. It's like learning that imagine a black person who this whole time thought that they were subhuman, that they are less human than a white person. And then all of a sudden there's freedom now. And then you have rights, the same rights that a white person has. So meaning that your boss can no longer hit you anymore. It's now illegal. It's assault. You're no longer getting Bantu education, but you're getting educated on the same level. You are equally, you're an equal human now. So that comes with that idea with, okay, sharp, so I deserve more. I deserve much better. I should be getting more. That sadness that my parents and forefathers were used to, and that they've adjusted onto, because I have this new information, because now I know that I'm seen as human, no longer subhuman. I have a right to claim these things. So of course, people will learn about this thing of depression, will learn about anxiety and whatnot. And of course, they will say, okay, sharp, this has been normalized, but I don't want to make it normal, because you look at our languages. In my language, when you greet, you start by saying sanbona, meaning I see you, hi. And then you go to say gunjan. So how are things? How are you? And the response is nkon. So it's not really an answer to say how I am, but it's stating that, hey, I'm still here. So it's kind of something I don't know, but for me, that's interesting. Why can't you say, okay, I'm happy, njabli, mthokozile, why can't you express the emotion? Why is it enough that you are just here and present? So yes, because we have more information, it's not that we are more sad, but we can kind of identify, because of the information we have, where we're supposed to be. And then if we're not there, it makes us angrier and more conflicted.
So, very interesting. And when you talk about culture, I think you remind me of something I was once told I was not aware of. So in my culture, you are not allowed to ask a stranger, how are you? So you can't say kunjani to a stranger, because if they were to respond and say they're not okay, you won't do anything about it. You don't even know who this person is. So if you meet a stranger, you just say hi, and it should end there. And I saw it once, because I tried to say how are you to a very old woman, and she didn't respond. But it's not a common thing, just one thing I was told, and I was not aware. I found that interesting as well. Yeah. But we'll deal with that. I want us to get a little bit political about this, and look at how where we come from could have affected where we are today. But first of all, do you think we are a depressed society? And if that is the case, in what ways do these elements of depression and anger and anxiety manifest themselves in society? And I'm talking about it now from a collective, point of view. I think we've dealt with the personal perspective of it. But as a collective, Black people, young Black people as well, would you say we are a depressed society? Is that a fair thing to say?
I think it's dangerous to give a diagnosis to an entire society or generation of people. But then on a personal perspective, I would say that yes, we are. And it's because of what we just spoke about before. We have access. We can see what young people are doing all over the world, what they have access to. We are looking at the employment stats all over the world. We're looking at all things. Instagram just unites us, and TikTok and whatever. So we kind of follow a person because they dance well on TikTok, but then you look into their lives and they're quite okay. They're doing well, and then you look back and you think, yes, but this thing, I can't just get, things that I want. I can't just be where I want to be, and also historically as well. You look at what happened to Black people, not only internationally, but in South Africa, kind of see that, there's been some harsh treatment, there's been some unfair treatment. And so it kind of spills over into the present time. And you kind of speak to, if you do have friends who are privileged and who are not affected by history, they kind of have that view that, no, man, Black people can be lazy sometimes. All you guys want to do is keep making kids and get grant and steal and crime and whatnot. And there's all these things that are bad. And then you look at the stats of prison, and you see that, okay, it's mostly Black people. Yeah, well, of course, majority of the people in the country are Black. But then why are so many of us in prison? Why do we link to crime so easily? And one would say it's poverty. And not all of us are going into crime over there, but we're all trying to maneuver this thing. We know where history has placed the Black man and the Black woman, and we're trying to kind of move out of that and get to a point where we're enjoying our lives. So we're not seeing that. I won't lie and say that there is no progress. There is progress. I must be honest. There is progress, but then of course it's not at the level where we want, and it's frustrating because there's historic things happening. There's socioeconomic things happening. And another thing is but although I didn't want to get into this, but when you have people who were in the struggle when Black people were not yet free, this is before the end of apartheid, in the apartheid era. You have people who are fighting then. These people are now our politicians, and then they look at South Africa the way it is, and they're seeing so much progress. They're seeing that, okay, we've done a lot. And there's young people who say, okay, fine, we get that, we appreciate that. But then you guys, you got there because as young people, you decided that here's what you want for yourselves, and it got you there. So now, as young people, we're here, here's what we want. And we want to get to this place that we want. This is our vision, and we have a right to fight for that. And then they tend to say that, no, you guys should appreciate where you are. Things shouldn't go as fast as you want. Things, they take time and all. And we're saying, but no, why are they taking time? We're being affected now. I wish I could start a family, but then I can't afford one. I can't afford one because there's no work. And then there's no work because there's all this and this and this, and a lot of factors which I don't really want to get into. So as a society, there are a lot of things that we are facing, and those things can affect us, especially because sometimes they seem to be hopeless phases or situations that we get ourselves into. I remember recently I was trying to apply for work because I'm doing my honors now in psychology. But then, and I'm doing it with UJ. I thought that I was going to do it with UNISA. So UNISA, you study from home. So I was thinking, okay, no, let me look for work with my degree. And it wasn't easy. It was hard. And at the end of the day, it kind of seemed like I started thinking that, but who do I know? Do I have a connection somewhere? And that's where we have to go now. A person can't just confidently submit their CV and think, okay, it's good enough, I'm going to get work. The markets are just not embracing the graduates. And this is not only a problem, it's not only young people who have problems. We also have elders, our parents, who when they look at things, before they get something or make a real move that they want in their lives, whether it's renovating or it's buying a new car or anything, they just have to get into debt, especially if they're in middle class. And you don't really get to enjoy things when you still owe them. So there can be a lot of things that can contribute to a person having a depressive phase because of that. And if these things are a societal thing, are a socioeconomic thing, then it's not correct for us to assume that it's only happening to one person, an individual. We should assume that if this person is being affected by this thing this way, then it's affecting a lot more people in the same way. So on a personal level, yes, I'm not saying this is a diagnosis, but I would agree and say that we're not where we want to be. We are kind of a depressed society.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because there are a lot of challenges that we have faced as a collective. And if you go back to Fees Must Fall, for example, it was a very difficult time for people that were involved in it. To see us going back to the old struggles, things that we wouldn't expect to be happening now. We wouldn't expect police brutality to be as it used to be before. And to see those things happen right in front of you, I think it's quite depressing. And also listening to you, I think you agree that historic injustice has contributed to our current disposition, also how we are mentally. But how has the lack of progress as far as resolving some of the injustices of the past frustrated us? Do you think we can point a blame to our government to say that our government resolved some of these issues quicker, we would be in a better position? You spoke about how difficult it is to get a job. Does one then look to our leadership as a body that has failed us, and that ensures maybe that we continue to be in this undesirable mental state as a collective? What do you say about our current realities and our current leadership?
Well, of course, in politics, you're not going to have a perfect leader. There are going to be mistakes. And like I said, the people who are in leadership now, looking at the average age in parliament, they see progress. They know what it was like back in the day, and they know what it's like now. And they're saying, okay, we've done something. So yes, they are not perfect. There are places where they lack, and of course we want them to kind of assist us. But then, I'd be dishonest in saying that some of the mistakes that they make, some of the mistakes that they make that do not contribute to society being, in my view, angry or depressed. They do. If someone, I remember there was this blunder, during lockdown. I don't know if it was during lockdown or when, but there was the assistant educators, the posts that they've opened for the graduates in the communities. So what had happened was that there were in some communities, there were two kinds of applications to schools. Either you would apply for that work online, or you do it manually on paper. So there was an issue that because the principals of schools don't quite understand how technology works, the only applicants who got jobs were those who applied manually. And then what the principals would do is that they would ignore those who applied online. So although it's a mistake, umuntu omdala prefers manual, but then that mistake, and it seeming or being as innocent as it seems, there's someone now who's going to stay at home without work. There's someone who has siblings that he has to look after. There's someone who has parents that he has to look after, and that job could have really assisted, because there's expectations. You go to school, you study, you have your qualification, you're back at home, and now you can't provide, and they're expecting that you at least contribute something. So now, because there's a principal who doesn't understand the technology, you didn't get the job, and so that is going to affect the person. If you want yourself to be someone who provides at home and you can't, that can lead to a depressive phase, because there's that isolation. You feel like, although people are not saying it, you do feel useless, and it is a hopeless situation. So it can trigger depressive phase. And like I said, if it's happening for one person, it could be happening for a number of people. So yes, government does contribute. But then another thing is that in regards to mental health, we shouldn't, although government should be involved, we should take steps ourselves in our personal lives and in our communities to kind of make things better, and not really put the blame all the time on government. Because yes, there are things that can go wrong, but then we should look at why things going wrong leads to a depressive phase, because that's not normal. Things going wrong can make you upset, sad, or discouraged or down for a while, but it's not normal for it to lead you to a depressive phase. It shouldn't get you to that struggle with that illness. So we should also look at the thinking that a person may have then. Why is there such dependence on government? Why can't we? Because there are ways that people can generate income on their own. So they should be fresh thinking, especially if you're looking at, okay, my mental health, there are experts who are going to look after it, but I need to go to those experts. So I'm responsible for it. So how am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to take care of the people around me? So yes, government does contribute, but then mostly we should look at, like I said, our non-physical selves, how we think about things, how we feel about things. And just kind of identify trends and thoughts and things that could lead us to experiencing a depressive phase.
Interesting. We have run out of time, but I think we would be doing a gross injustice if we do not touch on these last two issues that I hope maybe we can try and break them down in like 5 minutes or so. So let's look in the issue of gender in our society, and I want us to focus on men, and then we focus on women. You did mention some interesting facts as far as gender is concerned when it comes to depression. But I want to ask, in a society where men are expected to be strong, right? Does that affect how they deal with depression? Because sometimes I feel like if I acknowledge or accept the fact that I am depressed and let people see it or open up about it, I might be seen as weak. Does that affect how men deal with depression? And coming to the issue of gender-based violence, we know men have been in the wrong for the longest time. Could that also be a sign that men struggle to deal with internal strife and then they resort to violence?
Yes. With men being strong and that contributing to how they deal with depression, men in general, or in a traditional cultural sense, according to what I've seen, men see themselves as responsible. Even if you are having you are having a depressive phase where you feel like, I really don't have the motivation to be going to work. I really don't have the motivation to be doing anything, actually. Mowing the lawn, spending time with the kids, engaging romantically with my wife, or anything like that. It's things that, because of responsibility and duty, you do it whether you like it or not. So that can kind of be a problem, because, and of course, if it's work, it's work. You have to go. You can't say, I don't feel like going. And although a lot of people aren't aware about this, because depression is seen as an illness. If you are depressed, you can actually go see a psychologist, and you can. It is an illness, so it can be treated like flu or any other illness that can put you off work. And a lot of people think of it as, no, it's just a mood swing, and it's not really an important thing. But a person can have that and think that, okay, I don't want to, but I am going to go to work. I am going to do everything that I need to do. And that can kind of lead you to making an adjustment to say that, okay, I've got this thing, I don't want to do anything, but then I'm doing it because of duty. I'm not really enjoying life. I'm not happy. And that can lead to a lot of things. Another thing about, and although this is not an excuse, people who are depressed can also be easily irritated with things, be it little sounds and whatnot, and they don't feel in control really, because in some cases things are going well, there are positive events in your life, but you're down and you don't know why, so you don't feel in control. You're frustrated, you're irritated, and you don't understand why. And then there's these conflicts that can rise, and people respond in a different way. Some just shut themselves off and go away. Some resort to violence, and then some violence towards their kids or wives, or which then goes into gender-based violence. But this, of course, is not an excuse. You can't say that because you're depressed, you now have an excuse to lay a hand on someone. It is still incorrect. It is still wrong. And it's something that people, and men in particular, because that's what we're talking about now, have to deal with. And then also, it's not always depression that leads to gender-based violence. What some people have is high levels of aggression and anger. Some people, the parts of their brains that control their moral ethics, when you think about something wrong, how easy it is for you to start to begin the process of doing that wrong thing. Some people, it's easier. For others, because of it can be a biological thing. And some people are psychopaths, and some people, there's a lot of things that could come into play into that. And some people just grow up in violent homes, and all of these are not excuses, but then it's things that people should be aware of. And yeah, back to the beginning, the idea of strength, the idea of responsibility and duty, and not being weak, has kind of led to strange behaviors from men. You could be experiencing heart pain somewhere, or pains in a crucial area, but then you're just quiet about it because you don't want to appear vulnerable or weak. It's a bad kind of thinking.
Interesting. Let me ask you the last thing, because I want us to, as a way of closing, to zoom into issues around women as well. So I wanted to ask, and I think this is a very sensitive question. Women have been abused in our society, we know, and you mentioned earlier that women are more likely to fall into depression than men, although cases of suicide are more for men than women, but that statistic was an interesting one. So how can women that have been abused and are depressed find help in a society that continues in many ways to be hard on them? You can talk about the job market and how difficult it is for women, and expectations that people have. Sometimes you have got a male figure that is responsible for procurement in a particular company, and they would expect sexual favors from women in order for them to get a job or to get whatever it is that they may need. And I think maybe the views women have on leadership and on people in authority then change, and it's not something that you can blame on them, but it's because of the abuse that they have experienced. How can women find help in such a difficult society and a difficult time to live for them?
The first thing I should mention in regards to abuse, you should take it as a pill or something you eat that will affect your body, that will affect your person in a certain way. You swallow a pill, you can forget about it or you can choose to ignore it, but it is going to affect you. So with abuse, what I do know is that there's a lot of abuse out there happening and it's not being reported. People are just seeing it, okay, this happened. But it kind of got me where I am, so I'm gonna let it go. But then it does affect your self-worth. It does affect the way you see yourself. It does affect the non-physical part of yourself and the physical part of yourself as well. So it's the first thing that I would say is that women should, if they experience this, if they do experience abuse and depression from it, they should open up about it and speak up, see a professional. In regards to depression, anxiety, and mental disorders, they are illnesses, and it's professionals who should be looking into them and diagnosing them. Regards to society, yes, it does continue to be hard on women, especially who have, because there are many women, many who say that they've kind of felt like they were not getting help when they were reporting something. There are many women who feel like I was not believed when I spoke about this. When I went to go open a case about this, I didn't feel like I was gonna get help, and I didn't feel like I was being heard and I was being understood. In fact, there are some who would say that the harassment or the abuse, it continued, it just changed. Maybe what I'd experienced was a physical one. You get to the police station and all you experience is apathy. Someone who's just is doing their job. They don't really care. So it's important. SAPS is not, I don't know, but this is what I think. I don't think they are trained to look after our mental well-being. I don't think they are trained to be nurturing and caring in particular environmental situations. So all of us, both men and women, but particularly women, because that's what we're talking about now, they should get them, put themselves in situations where they can speak to someone about the abuse, speak to someone about the depression, and someone who isn't society, someone who is an expert, someone who understands that anything really can put you off, and depression can come out of nowhere. Someone understands that abuse is, although unfortunately it is a common thing that is happening, but it shouldn't be treated because it's a common thing that's happening as if it's nothing. Though it's common, it is major for each individual that it happens to, and it should be addressed adequately and enough with the right experts involved. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered that question adequately.
Yeah, no, definitely. We have to close it, unfortunately. You know, would love to go on and on because there's just a lot we can talk about as far as this subject is concerned. But let me thank you for your time. Let me thank you for the knowledge and the wisdom that you have shared with us, and I'm very confident that this is going to help a lot of people out there in enlightening their understanding, and also providing assistance as to how they can deal with some of the issues that they face. We do hope that things will eventually get better. We do hope that our government will put in place policies and structures that will speak to some of these problems and some of these issues. Sometimes one feels that government is not treating some of these problems as a priority. You know, I observed around issues of gender-based violence, how if there's a woman that has been murdered by a man, government will come out and make statements and talk about what they will do to make things better. And then a year later, you find that none of what they promised has been done. And one feels hopeless in that situation. But we do believe that we will find hope somewhere. So to everyone that is tuned in to tonight's episode, thank you so much. And thank you so much to Mr. Mahlangu for being our guest tonight as we delve into this very critical issue in our society. We will meet again next Sunday, tackling a different topic. Have a magnificent evening, everyone. Thank you.